Great. Okay, so I'm going to start the webinar and start letting everyone in now.
Great.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. We'll be getting started in just a moment. I want to remind you that this is a live discussion and really want you to be a part of it. So please use the chat box and share your thoughts and ask questions through the Q&A function. To get us started, we've got about 32 people in here now. I'm sure a few will be jumping in. Yep, I can see those numbers ticking up as we go. It takes a minute for everyone to join. So as you're joining, if you can just jump into the chat box and, let us know who you are, who's in the audience, where are you dialing in from, what sort of leadership role are you in? Are you working in brand marketing? Are you working in social and influencers? Is content and creative your focus? Let us know a little bit more about you, and so that we can kind of tailor the conversation a bit to everyone who's in here today and make it as valuable as possible. I can see Wendy Lacotte from HyperX is from the LA area. Very excited to have you here too, Wendy. We've got Toronto creative director and writer. That's Nicholas. Great to have you. Great. We've got some definitely. Someone from Pakistan.
Nairobi.
Brilliant. Mexico, fantastic. Great to see some CX people in here as well. Such a huge topic through 2020, 2021 with changing customer expectations. We've got a lot to cover. Wonderful. It's midnight in Japan. And Koti is very tired. Let's make sure this conversation is as engaging as possible, shall we, Cheryl?
My goodness. Thank you for staying awake.
Wonderful. Well, I think we're about ready to get started. So let's jump right in. Hello, everyone. My name is Jasmine Keys, and you are tuned in to Reuters Events Women in Marketing series, where every other Tuesday I sit down with one of the most inspirational and driven leaders across the globe. Today, I am joined by Cheryl Guerin, the Executive Vice President of North America Marketing and Communications at MasterCard. Thank you so much for being here today, Cheryl.
Oh, thank you for having me, Jasmine. It's so great to be with you and just to see everybody coming in from around the world here. It's so exciting.
Yeah, it really is. So we've got 77 people in here at the moment. Today, we're going to be talking about how MasterCard created a culture of inclusivity, innovation, and action that encouraged employees to not only speak up, but to really push the agenda for equality and convert what were once simple ideas into product updates and features that have honestly had a hugely positive impact on your customers. And I'm so excited for you to share some of those initiatives. But before we do that, I think it would be great to have a little bit of context, to step back and look at how you came into your current role. So you've been at MasterCard for almost your entire career, actually.
But it's still surprising and shocking, but yes.
But you've taken on so many different roles, and it's not been a linear progression. It's not just been in marketing, and I think that diversity has had a really big impact on your accelerated career progression. So do you want to tell us a little bit about about your experience and your diverse experience, really, and
Sure.
how you came to be where you are?
Sure. So before I got to MasterCard, I spent about 10 years in the ad agency side of the business, which I absolutely loved, by the way. And it was high energy, and I loved working on different brands and clients. It was amazing. And honestly, after I had my first son, I decided that if I could get closer to home and if I could find a little bit more balance. The agency side was crazy. This would be good for me. And frankly, I still so passionate about marketing and specifically advertising. I was really attracted to the priceless campaign MasterCard was running. And it was the first campaign, I would say, in the financial services area, and frankly, in many areas or industries where, they moved away from consumption or values of focusing on consumption and moved into human values. That's what this campaign was about. And it kind of signaled to me that this company had these values. And so it was really at the top of my list, and I was able to land a role here. And yeah, I've had so many different experiences at MasterCard. And you said this, I had different experiences from, doing partner marketing or promotions to global integrated marketing to digital marketing, and then product roles or general management roles here at MasterCard. And I think what's important here is the ability to do two things. One is to skill collect over time. And really, the more you skill collect, the more you become an SME or an expert in different areas. And this was really important, and especially in marketing, to not just do one area of marketing. And therefore, that serves me really well as I think about the role I have now, which is managing all functions of marketing and communications. And then the other piece is having real perspective and business perspective, and perspective that gives you an ability to work better and collaborate better with the different cross-functional teams here at MasterCard. So doing a product job and doing a role where I was managing product and services for North America, and then doing a role where I managed credit products globally, really gave me a different perspective to understand different markets and countries. And it gave me perspective to understand what it truly takes. At something like MasterCard, we may be a big consumer brand, but we go to market through customers. We're really a B2B company. So having that perspective just gave me more confidence. And I will tell you, managerial, sort of that muscle around being a manager, because if you're an expert, you tend to tell your people what to do. And when you're less of an expert in something, you tend to listen more. And it gave me a perspective to listen to my employees a bit more and understand their perspective. And then I take that back into marketing. And so you could do what you love. One of the things I really learned, Jasmine, was I really didn't want to do anything but marketing because I love it so much. And so when you're tapped to do these different opportunities, or you should pursue different opportunities, it's really important because it just makes you better, and you could come back to the thing that you love doing.
And there is so much to love in marketing. It's so diverse. And, you've talked about it. Like there's obviously your digital marketing, and you've covered a lot of other areas. But I'd like to kind of come back to that digital marketing piece, because you moved into a digital marketing role when it wasn't the digital marketing that we know today. It was a really random, this digital marketing, very exciting piece. So tell us about, when you moved into that role and what it was like leading that for MasterCard.
I tell you, and it was like, it was going through this rebranding digital marketing when I started, and this was a long time ago, again, right after I had my second son. A lot of changes with birds, and that's it. I just have two, so that's it. But I remember coming back from my maternity leave, and there was a role in advertising opened. And I specifically spoke to my manager about going for that job. And this is for me a real good lesson learned as a manager. She specifically said, but you've done that already. You're an expert at it already. Why do you want to do that job? It's like doing the same thing you've done, just at a different level. And so she said, but you know what would be really interesting? This area of digital marketing. It's so unknown. There's a whiteboard of opportunity, and we need to figure out, what we do with it. It was back in 2004. So it was like the height of when social was just ramping up. And the rebranding was, used to call this function interactive marketing, or, you know, and it like moved to this digital marketing, which was really fancy. But, you know, I tell you, I was nervous about it because one, my heart was like, oh, I love advertising. Again, that sort of steer my own, you know, sort of desire to do what I like to do was steering me to one way. And my manager was so good to say, do something different, get a different skill, learn this. And it pushed me into something that was a game changer for my career. And, you know, the whiteboard idea that something's a whiteboard is also scary. But guess what? When something is new, no one else has done it. And you can take it where you want to take it. And all you have to do is make progress, good progress and advancement that makes sense, and demonstrate that you could advance in this space. And in like 3 months, I was the resident expert in digital marketing. And I was kind of like, who knew? Who knew? And it was, you know, again, building a team of great people, you know, working with terrific agencies, and, you know, it all came together. But it's just a reinforcement that managers, especially with women, have to give an extra push. It may not be what people are comfortable doing. So, you know, keep pushing as managers to get women to take what they see as a chance. But really, to me, this was the ever game changer of my career because of how digital took off as a function in marketing and how important it became for our brand and our business. You know, one of the things I should also add is when we think about the importance of leaning in and helping women, you know, you could do this with your team and in business, you know, in your working environment, but also think about what women are going through right now, you know, with the pandemic. You know, definitely taking on, you know, more work than ever and, you know, more anxiety than ever. So we need to think of that. And then really important, I know it's, you know, it's small business week, small business month. We should be thinking about small businesses. And truthfully, women were opening up businesses at, you know, a serious multiple to men prior to the pandemic. And particularly even Black women were leading the way on that front. And their verticals, the women's small business verticals, have been hit the hardest at this time. And I know one of the things that we did is we leaned in and we launched, you know, a grant program, a mentorship program. We've had it in place for 3 years. We stepped up our effort to create virtual mentoring and support, and in particular, put together a whole suite of tools called Digital Doors, because in order for these businesses to survive and then ultimately thrive, they need to go digital. So, you know, it's like the collide of my two worlds, my now love for digital marketing. And then, you know, when you look at the small businesses, the importance of going digital. And we put in place all of these efforts to create a real impact and support these women at the most critical time.
And that's amazing and fantastic to hear you've had such success with that already. So, you know, how did you go about that internally? Because you've talked about, you know, being tapped on the shoulder by obviously some great mentors, some great bosses, and they've encouraged you to step out of your comfort zone. So when we talk about your passion for women in business, do you think that's where that came from? Or were you leading the charge on these areas, or was it kind of a collaborative approach internally? Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, definitely collaborative. But I have to say, this is even prior to the pandemic. About 3 years ago, we were looking at some consumer data. You know, I've always leaned into the Women's Leadership Network here at MasterCard and been part of that. And then, you know, part of that, when we look at diversity and inclusion at MasterCard, we look at it in 3 ways. It's the people pillar. So what are we doing here with our own people and for employees? It's the market pillar. What's the business opportunity or business need? And then third is, and most important, is society. What can we do to have an impact on society at large? So if you think about it, the marketing and or product roles will sit in that market pillar of what's the opportunity. So we were looking at the research and data, and it really pointed to the fact that we had this huge trend of women opening up businesses. you know, at that time, 5 times the rate of men. So we internalized this and what was going on, and we launched something called Her Ideas Start Something Priceless, which was a campaign to really shine a light on women-owned businesses and all they do for our economy, for society. And then we also, when we did our research and our homework, we understood, besides capital, which is an obvious for women-owned businesses or any small business, frankly, mentoring and networking, they wanted to hear from other women who have launched businesses and are at different stages and learn the mistakes, the good, the bad, the ugly, in a comfortable environment. And so we launched something called Path to Priceless, which is an entire mentorship program and networking program that brings women together to learn from each other. And so that started even way before the pandemic. Now, when the pandemic hit, we stepped up our efforts big time. And we said, you know, our product colleagues came into play and they created a whole suite of tools for digital, including a digital diagnostic. So and it's open right now, any small business can go on, take the diagnostic, and it tells them what they need to do, whether it's get the cyber tools that they need, or, you know, even contactless payments, by the way, you know, that's what we do. We do payments, right? And so, you know, or ordering ahead, even if you have a storefront, you need digital, right? Order ahead and pick up and so forth. So, you know, really highly collaborative, but we were so grateful that we were already so focused on this segment for all the right reasons.
Yeah, and it sounds like, well, from our conversations earlier as well, that once this initiative was launched, you kind of saw a movement within MasterCard of those women, the women working in MasterCard, really appreciating this mentorship community and kind of coming together to continue pushing the agenda for equality and for women, both internally and externally with your products. So, you know, how did you go about that team when it, you know, when it comes to gaining buy-in and pushing this agenda? Because, you know, this webcast is about something very similar, isn't it? It's about pushing the agenda for women and for equality. And a lot of the people who join in, you know, they want to continue to push this within their organization. So, you know, if you could give some tips or some ideas on how to do that, then we'd really appreciate it.
I mean, if you focus on meaningful impact, and you have to set yourself up for knowing, one, we need to be differentiated as a company and know how you're going to differentiate, right? So of course, there's product features and all kinds of things that can be done and should be done as a company. But now I'm turning to something that's really important. We've always been about creating priceless experiences. You know, for years, that's what our campaign has been about, both observing priceless experiences, creating priceless experiences. We moved to inspiring priceless and having meaningful impact. So there is no initiative that our department, our marketing department does that's just advertising anymore. There's no longer a world of just saying and not doing and taking action. And so when you think about what we did with the women in small business, we shined a light. So we used our advertising to demonstrate the impact and show women as role models. That has a meaningful impact. The second was this mentorship program, which was all about providing a safe place to learn and help women, and then digital doors to actually get their businesses online. So here's the thing: when you're trying to get buy-in on something like this, you're going to go to whoever your stakeholders are. You know, in this case, this was our president of our region, and, you know, and demonstrate the business opportunity and how you're differentiating and how you're meaningfully solving for this segment, not just the advertising. The advertising is the magnifier, right? Like, we just launched a Jennifer Hudson campaign during Black History Month, and she was the absolute best voice to amplify the importance of Black women-owned businesses.
Mm-hmm.
This is the amplifier. Then the Fearless Fund grant programs that we did, and the education and the mentorship programs that we're doing in digital doors, that's the impact. So if I shine a light, more people will learn about all of these other things that they could do and help to advance their businesses. So my advice is, don't just say, do. Think about your differentiation and your meaningful impact. And I mean, Jasmine, I'm lucky I work for a company where inclusion and impact is so important to our culture. We call it doing well while doing good. It's kind of a mantra we have.
You absolutely are, yeah.
So buy-in becomes a lot easier when it's embedded in the culture of your company.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to open this up to the audience as well. We've got over 100 people in here. We want you to ask questions. Actually, one's just come through from ED and I, coming from the ad world, but still in the marketing realm, where the industry sadly leads all others in not practicing ED and I in all its forms. Do you find age or ageism is never included or talked about? I'm wondering if you think all would be fixed by addressing the economics of the equation, open-mindedness aside, that's not enough. Thoughts?
I mean, you know, it starts, again, I'll go back to where I just left off. It starts with who your company is and what you're trying to do, right? So, you know, our brand positioning is connecting everyone to priceless possibilities. And a few years ago, if I was doing this session, I would have told you it's connecting people to priceless possibilities, which sort of meant everybody and everyone, but really one word change is really meaningful. Connecting everyone to priceless possibilities means that everyone's included, everyone is thought of, everyone's entitled to a priceless life. So whether it's age, whether it's, I mean, when you take, we just did something called True Name for transgender and non-binary consumers, where we learned, you know, again, starts with insights, that this was such a pain point for the transgender and non-binary consumers, that the name on the card didn't match their chosen name. It was their legal name. And so a huge pain point and embarrassment for, you know, these individuals who present their card and were either denied service or discriminated against. And so we've changed that. We created the True Name card feature. Both BMO, Harris, and Citibank have rolled out with this card feature. Others are coming. And so my point in telling you the story is that it's about starting with insights and what matter to people. We showed you that on small business. You know, what mattered was that mentorship, and we did something about it. What mattered with transgender was the way that card comes to them, they were not proud of, and also felt feared for their safety. And we fixed it. And so it means everyone's included.
Yeah, and these sort of product features that you know that you've spearheaded throughout the organization, you know, is something you should be so proud of. And I'm not just saying that, but honestly, like when you told me about this, I don't know, felt quite proud of society for a step in the right direction, because these sorts of pain points are what we should be recognizing with all of the data and insights and digital opportunity that we have now today. So you know, well done to MasterCard for doing that, and well done to you and your team for spearheading it, because you know it is difficult and there is still so much discrimination, you know, in big organizations in the world in general, of course. So yeah, great to hear about that. Just we've got a few more questions coming in, so I'll just pose one of them to you. We're talking about kind of diversity and inclusion, and I'm Saskia here is interested in understanding what sort of KPIs and metrics your company uses. And I think this could be to measure inclusion, but I think this could be used like, you know, internally, but of course in your marketing campaigns as well, how you're ensuring that you are delivering inclusive marketing.
Absolutely. So, you know, one of the things we do is Every ad is copy tested with all the ethnic groups that they should be in the country. So like, when we're doing an ad, we'll look at, it'll go through Black, Hispanic, Asian, etc., and we get a sense of how this is doing, women versus men, and we get a sense of how this is doing. So everything is tested prior, and we make sure. But the bigger point that you made is, as we're looking at our brand overall, one of the things that we look at is how people perceive us as, doing good for society, doing good for the world, and being an inclusive company. And so we do that in our tracking studies, and we look at that. But it ties back to what I was sharing before: people pillar, market pillar, society pillar. And each one of these pillars will have metrics related to employees. It will have then, from a business standpoint, whether that's supplier diversity and or brand measures on how we're doing with different audiences from a brand standpoint. And then the societal, what real impact are we making? What's the difference? Not just funding that we've given a ton of funding, but what's the outcome of that funding delivering? And for each initiative, whether that's in solidarity, whether that's gender, whether that's, women, gender, and other, we look at all three and we set measures for the company. And there's working teams, like I'm the co-chair for the market pillar for In Solidarity effort. So, we create measures, we publish them to the entire company. In fact, we have a webcast next week updating the entire company on how we're doing on our measures for In Solidarity, right? So it's very public and open for everybody to understand what we're doing, how we're making progress, and how we're making impact.
Absolutely. And I think that when we're, we talk so much about diversity and inclusion in our marketing, but it does have to come from within the organization as well. And there's a question here on diversity and inclusion and the fact that the gender pay gap still exists even in the largest organizations of the world. So Amara's wondering what your views are on that and how we as a society or we in your organization can address this.
Yeah, we've addressed it. So I am beyond proud. There's a few things, and it is putting your money where your mouth is. One, the gender pay gap, they're closed, and focus and continue to look at that and monitor it and continue to close where it's needed. But we did do that, and we have a commitment to that. Even on sustainability, we just announced recently that executive compensation will be tied back to sustainability objectives. And so, that way it filters to the entire company downward, on what we're doing from a sustainability and environmental standpoint as well, and the practices that we have in place. So again, this isn't an individual, this is a culture that inspires diversity and inclusion and doing good. And from that, people are empowered, right? There was a small team of people in marketing that just were empowered to get that true name to market because we knew how important it was. And the company backs us because it is who we are. And this is really important. But it's, again, it doesn't, you could emulate a lot from marketing, and marketing will be part of every single one of these diversity and inclusion initiatives. But then it's how, people feel coming into work every day. It's how people feel empowered to take on these issues, and they do. And so I'm proud that our team feels it. And by the way, it's, when we do a gender initiative, it's not just women that care about this. The men join in, and they're focused on how they deliver on this. They're extremely proud. When I think of True Name and I think of what we've done for women-owned businesses, everybody wants to be part of this because it makes you feel great about the work you're doing.
Of course, and there are men tuned into this webcast right now already. Have taken a few questions from them. It is, we need those champions of change across both genders, and also, to address social injustices as well, internally and
Absolutely.
externally. And, we've talked about the kind of the gender pay gap and how that's being addressed. Is it a similar approach with social injustice, especially over the past year or two,
Yeah.
when there's, it's such a prevalent issue?
Yeah. So, on one critical important point is, it's not that MasterCard just woke up last year and focused on this for the first time. We introduced the Center for Inclusive Growth in 2014. And as part of that, we've been investing in Black communities and Black owned businesses for many years now, and a focus on closing that racial wealth gap. And we furthered this commitment last year with a 500 million investment. But again, really careful. It's an investment, but behind that investment are impact initiatives that really focus on closing that gap. And so this is another area, and small business, again, is a huge part of that. And so, we just did the Fearless Fund grants. We funneled money to women of color owned businesses through C-Note, which is a CGI. But anyway, the key is that, we didn't just start last year, but we furthered our commitment in a large scale way to closing this gap.
Yeah, and that's so great to hear. And in fact, I think that's a great note to end on. And it really does sum up a lot of what we've talked about with True Names, with the women's mentoring initiatives. And, it's fantastic to see what MasterCard are doing. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our audience. And of course, Thank you to Cheryl. This webcast has been recorded and will be shared. So once you receive those recordings, do share them with someone who you think will benefit. Let's grow this community. So you're tuned in for a bonus episode of Women in Marketing during Small Business Week with Cheryl Guerin. I'm Jasmine Keys, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.